Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm delighted to be able to welcome Franka Cadée. Franka is the president of the International Confederation of Midwives and has been since 2017. She's a midwife herself and has over 30 years' experience in strategy and policy on maternal health. She trained in cultural anthropology at the London School of Economics, but went on to study nursing and midwifery in London. Really looking forward to this presentation, and I'm hoping that you have questions and some discussion for Franka at the end. Thank you very much, Franka.
Great, thanks so much, Karen. Thank you for inviting me and for me to be allowed to be here. I think it's so fantastic to see a collaboration between midwife section of the INMO of the Republic of Ireland and the Royal College of Midwives in Northern Ireland. You are a real example to have kind of a conference of both together, and I would love associations worldwide to do that more often. So that's really, really great. I think before I start, thank you for the introduction. I do actually associate myself most with being a midwife than with the president. I think the president of ICM is something I do at the moment. I've been chosen by the members to do it, but it's a transient thing. I'm standing on the shoulders of others and others will stand on my shoulders. But being a midwife is something I really identify with. And it's always so important to me to mention that. I'm going to share my screen, and just for everyone to be warned, it might look a bit weird in the beginning, but I do think it'll kind of turn out okay in the end. So just please bear with me for a moment. How does that look? Can you actually see my global midwifery leadership there properly? Karen, can you see that? I can't hear anything at the moment. Okay, this doesn't look like it's working. Is this still working? Can you still see me? Can I get some feedback from someone?
Franka, it's fine.
Okay, great. Then I'll start again. I'm so sorry. Thanks. Okay, so I'm so sorry about that. And thank you again for allowing me to speak today. And I'd actually like to talk to you about global midwifery, but also Irish midwifery, because the reason why we have global midwifery is because we have all these member associations that together make up global midwifery. And Irish midwifery is part of global midwifery. I'm not quite sure if you're aware of this map, which is actually a wonderful map on the ICM website. That you can click on every country. These are all the member associations of the ICM. And if you click on one of these, then you will find where the member association is, how their education is organized, how their regulation is organized, what kind of a member association do they have? Do they have several member associations? I can really advise you to go to that map and just to have a look at yourselves and look at other countries. And I know that Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are doing this conference together. And I know that you have quite a few differences, but I can assure you, even from all these midwives associations worldwide, we are all very different, but actually we have much more that we have in common than that we're different. And I think it's so important to kind of focus on where we are similar. And I'm sure that you too will find you have so many similarities. So it's great that you're having this conference today. So I just want to go back to that for a second, just to tell you a little bit about what I'll be talking about today. I want to talk about ICM in general, our vision, our mission, a little bit about the year of the midwife and the nurse that we're having this year, and to combination with COVID-19, which I'm sure you understand has been a bit of an issue. I want to talk about the ICM strategy and basically what we need for strategies to be able to be implemented. So also look at the Irish situation and how your strategies are implemented. And basically how we need to move together towards the decade of midwives and the SDGs ending in 2030 and us actually delivering on those SDGs and how we can lead that change together. So the ICM, we were established in 1922 and we have 142 midwives associations in 124 countries now. But when it was first established, I think it was about 10 European countries that established it in Brussels. From there, it moved to the UK. It was housed in the Royal College of Midwives for quite a while, and then moved to the Netherlands about 15 years ago. And I am the ICM president and Dutch, but it's a pure coincidence that ICM is housed in the Netherlands and I'm Dutch. It's the first time I think that we actually have a Dutch president of the International Confederation of Midwives. We work with our 6 regions. They're similar to the WHO regions. So that's Africa, the Americas, Southeast Asia, Western Pacific, Eastern Mediterranean, and Europe. And in some regions, we have several board members that represent that region. And I think Europe is one of them. And interestingly, when you look at our different regions within Europe, we have Northern, Central, and Southern Europe. And the Republic of Ireland is a member of the Central European region. And Northern Ireland is a member of the Northern European region. But in 2023, it will become one, and so we'll be joined all as one together. So ICM, the International Confederation of Midwives, we envision a world where every childbearing woman has access to a midwife's care for herself and her newborn. And when you look at this vision, it looks like the accent is on access, but actually the accent is on midwife, because we mean midwife according to the international definition of a midwife. So a midwife that delivers quality care. So it's that we want every childbearing woman worldwide to have access to quality care by a midwife for herself and her newborn. And the mission of ICM is that we want to strengthen our midwives associations. As you can read, it's to advance the profession of midwifery globally, to promote autonomous midwives as the most appropriate caregivers for childbearing women, and in keeping birth normal, in order to enhance the reproductive health of women and the health of newborns and their families. And as you can see, in many ways, midwives are our reason for being on earth is women. Midwives are there for women. Our associations of midwives are there for midwives. So your associations in the Republic and in Northern Ireland are there for you. And I would really encourage you, if you want one voice, join your association. And then the International Confederation of Midwives is there for the associations of midwives globally, to try to give us a global voice. Now, this is a bit of an odd picture. I'm sorry, it's also not very focused, although I do understand you're not seeing it on a huge screen, but you're seeing it on your smaller screens at home. This is just something about our governance structure. And what's most important, I think, is for you to realize we have a new board. We started in June. The new board has never, ever met face to face. Of course, we meet a lot more, I think, than we would have otherwise done were we able to meet face to face. But our board members meet this way regularly. And the way it works, the governance of ICM is that, say, the Republic of Ireland has 2 members in our council, and the RCN, Northern Ireland, has 2 members in the council, and all the members worldwide have 2 members each that come to our annual general meetings and to our council meetings, and they are the ones who actually provide mandates on all kinds of documents and our strategy, for example, and on top of that, they choose the board members. The president, vice president, and treasurer are voted on by all the board members, and per region, you have your regional board members. So at the bottom right here of the photograph, you'll see Lisa. She is the board member for Central Europe, and on the second row, second from the left, you'll find Trude, and she is the regional board member representing Northern Europe.
Franka,
and so the board employs, yes.
Could you reshare your screen? We're not seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'll do it again. Thank you so much. Let me see now how to do that. I'm so sorry about this, everyone. Okay, just a moment. I know it looks a bit odd at the moment, but I think it will be okay. Can you see this now?
Yeah, I can see that now.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I've got that, Franka.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry, everyone. Technology is often an issue, and I think as midwives, we know that things sometimes work differently, but we get there in the end. So basically what I'm trying to say is this is our board. This is our new board. We've never met together face to face, but we meet a lot online. And basically the board employs the chief executive, so the director of ICM. You can see her from the second row on the left, from the bottom, with the reddish hair. That's Sally Pearman. She's our chief executive, and she employs the ICM staff. We have just a small office in The Hague in the Netherlands of about 10 full-time employees and about 5 people who work as consultants. And that is what makes up ICM. Many people think we are a huge organization, and in many ways we are, because we are all ICM, but actually the head office is quite small. So what are the kinds of services that ICM delivers? So we have quite a lot of documents that, for example, the definition of what is a midwife, what is midwifery, the philosophy of the model of midwifery care is something that we determine internationally, and our council members, so you vote for those to agree on that we all agree to that philosophy. We have also have the essential competence for a midwifery practice. That's the middle one with the colored kind of round circles. And this is very interesting because we all midwives worldwide have basic essential competencies that we all share, and that's what makes us a midwife and similar. And then on top of that, of course, you'll have extra competencies, things that in your country specifically midwives do that other midwives might not do. And those are the extra competencies. But we all have basic essential competencies that we share. And another thing which I do find is exciting is that ICM produces a document every 4 years called the State of the World Midwifery Report. And in that, what we do is we look at midwifery worldwide, not only midwives, although the focus is on midwives, but also the wider maternity system. And we look at what does midwifery look like in each country, how many midwives are there, what's the maternal mortality rate, what are all kinds of other indicators of good midwifery, and we compare them country to country. The next one will come out next year. That will be the third report we are producing. And we'll also have high income countries in that report next year. Up to now, it's always been middle and low income countries, but I know that the Royal College will also have their figures in. I'm not quite sure if the Republic of Ireland will have their figures. I know the Dutch will too. So quite a few people will be able to show their countries, how they compare to others. And I think it will be a very interesting lobby instrument for us to show our systems. So just a few of what of our kind of the activities that ICM does. We have many, many activities, but some of them are, for example, our regional meetings. We do those online at the moment, and the regional members, so those 2 people that speak for midwifery for their countries, come together from all the countries per region, and we determine things like what our regional strategies should be, what our regional priorities are, so that ICM can support those associations to do that. We have quite a few webinars. At the moment, we have our Stronger Together webinars, which are actually leading towards next year. We'll be starting a kind of a global campaign that will last till 2030, where we want to show or accentuate how we work together with women. And I'll be talking about that a bit more. We have projects, many projects. One of them is, for example, the Happy Birthdays project, where we do emergency skills training in sub-Saharan Africa. Something called the MIAP, the Midwifery Education Accreditation Process, where we give international accreditation to midwifery schools. And of course, a lot of representation. So when within WHO or UN, midwifery talk is being done, we are there to represent midwives. And we also do that regionally and nationally through the midwives that are a member of ICM. So it's not just me doing that, it is many midwives in many positions doing that all together. And we also produce many advocacy toolkits, and we have a newsletter. I hope you realize you can get the newsletter, anyone can get the newsletter. Just go to the website and find the newsletter and get on there and get that information once a month. It's very interesting to see what's happening globally and to see and feel and understand that you are a part of the global community. And at the bottom right here is just some information, which I'm sure you already realize, I hope you realize, is about our Congress that has become a virtual Congress in 2021. But I'll be coming back to that one as well. So, 2020, the year of the midwife. I think that, as you well know, quite a lot has changed. And that which we thought was going to happen didn't really happen. The year of the midwife and the nurse, so some people call it the International Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, but I'm sure you can understand why I call it the year of the midwife and the nurse, was there to really profile midwifery. And in some ways, it didn't happen, although in many ways it also did. I think it has also really accentuated the importance of midwifery. And COVID really changed things, and I think we've come to realize that women still have babies. Women still become pregnant. And somehow what has happened is that internationally it's thought that midwifery and part of the midwifery work we do is not essential and at times hasn't been given the priority. Whereas actually we're now slowly coming to realize that it needs top priority because midwives take care of the next generation. Midwives are there to make sure that we have a healthy next generation. I don't know if you can associate with some of the things that have been happening globally. I'm sure in many ways you can. Like internationally, we've seen a great lack of personal protective equipment for midwives, mainly because midwives have not been seen as a priority. We've seen quite an erosion of sexual reproductive health and rights for women. So, for example, abortion services in some countries have just been stopped because it's been thought again that it's not an essential service. It's something we really, really worry about because we feel at times it's used politically. So politically, people feel they don't really want to give the service. They just blame COVID and don't have the service. And I think it's a very, very big problem. I think in many countries, as in Ireland, we have many virtual consultations and less face-to-face interactions with women and their families, and also antenatal care is often given online or not given at all in many, many countries. And of course, women have had to give birth in quite a few countries without a birth companion. Of course, a midwife is there or another healthcare professional is there, but no birth companion. And that is something that has given quite a bit of friction. I hope you also recognize that some of the things that have happened have not really been evidence-based. For example, the cesarean section rate has risen in many, many countries. Some people, I heard a story the other day of a Spanish woman who is herself a nurse, so she's quite well aware of her own body and what her rights are. But when she came into hospital, she was tested positive for COVID. She didn't realize she had no symptoms, but she was tested positive and she was just told, okay, you have to have a cesarean section now. And it totally overwhelmed her. She had it because, you know, it just happened to her. And only later she realized that it was not evidence-based at all, but she was overwhelmed by that decision that was happening over her. What we've also heard is that many more women have suffered domestic violence during the COVID pandemic, especially with us having to keep indoors. And often I think we as midwives have been the only ones supporting women. And sometimes I hear that midwives say that, you know, our word means with women, that we feel that we've been less able to be with women. But actually, in many ways, I feel we've been more able to be with women because often we've been the only ones that have been with women, even though we could see women less antenatally during birth. We've often been the only ones there. During this year, I think some very difficult decisions had to be taken to keep our staff safe. And because of this, women have experienced some very, very difficult situations. And I do hope that we will give that attention in the time to come, because I think for some women that could have been quite traumatic and we need to give that attention. But on the other hand, there have also been some really wonderful positive stories of midwives who've really gone a long way to support women to be there. And I've heard many stories back from women being so pleased with what midwives have done for them, even though the circumstances of the pandemic have been really, really challenging. And what we've also seen is some really interesting outcomes. For example, the prematurity rate has gone down, so less premature babies are being born. I've also read a message about that from Ireland, but also from Denmark, also from the US. In the Netherlands at the moment, they're exploring this. And the prematurity has, so the number of babies born prematurely has gone down significantly. They're talking about things like 30%, and we are exploring why this could be. On the other hand, I have also heard that the stillbirth rate might have risen slightly. So there's two things to look at there. Also, breastfeeding rates have gone up dramatically, and I think that is also very interesting to see that breastfeeding rates have gone up, except in certain countries where they have not used the evidence and have said that women shouldn't be breastfeeding their babies when they have COVID positive. Again, that's not evidence-based, but in some countries that is still happening. And in some countries like the Netherlands, we find our home birth rate has gone up, mainly because women home birth in the Netherlands is safe within our system. It's quite common. And women have found that they don't want to go into hospital because they're worried that COVID is there. And a very safe option is for them to stay at home. And so they stay at home. As ICM, during this pandemic, we've tried to work according to three main principles. And everything we do, we try to do according to these three main principles. The first one is that we want to do no harm to our members, to our partners, to our organization. The second principle is that we want to keep moving forward. We need to keep moving forward. And the third one is we want to make use of every opportunity we can to move forward. And I think in that way, we have been able to push certain things for midwifery globally. And one of the things that we have been pushing and we've been working on is a new strategy. So ICM has a new strategy that it's developing. It's very, very close to being completed. It will be completed in January, but I'll give you a little kind of sneak preview of it. And this strategy is our strategy for 2021 to 2023. And this strategy was developed with our council members. So you, the members, first came up with their main priorities, but we also interviewed young midwife leaders, midwife students. Students are our future. So it's very important to hear what students need to have to say. We've also spoken to head office staff, to our partners, and in that way, we've developed this new strategy. And what we see is that as ICM, we want to position ourselves as the expert in advising, influencing, creating, and enabling the profession of midwifery globally. And we want to do that through three things. First of all, drive innovation and sustainability for the future of midwifery. And this sounds quite clean in a way, but what we actually mean is that ICM, so midwifery, so not only the organization in The Hague, but we need to look at innovation and we need to make sure we are sustainable. So that what we do as midwives in practice, but also in our associations, needs to be sustainable so that we can carry midwifery forward. Also, we want to strengthen and develop and roll out a new professional framework, and I'll be coming to that to explain a bit more what that means. And we want to foster a movement for midwifery. So we want to start a movement for midwifery where we work with women. So we're making partnership with global women's organizations to try to move midwifery forward together with women so that we can attain the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So when you come to the professional framework, I'm not quite sure some of you might be familiar with the ICM 3 pillars. These are that midwifery stands on quality education, quality regulation, and that there is an association. And we've always seen these 3 pillars as being the basic pillars of midwifery, that if you want midwifery to work in a country, if you want midwives to function well in a country, we need these 3 pillars. But what we've actually realized is in many ways this is not really enough. There's much more to midwifery that helps us to come to our potential. And research has shown that if midwives do come to their potential, we can do up to 87% of the sexual reproductive health care for women. But then we do have to do that within a framework whereby we come to our potential. So for that, we need education, regulation, association, but we also need leadership. Leadership is an extremely important part of midwifery. We need to all follow our midwifery philosophy of care and all follow that same philosophy and stand for that special thing of midwifery, because midwifery is one of the few healthcare professions that is truly about healthcare. Many other healthcare professions are for taking care of the sick. And of course, we also take care of women who are not as healthy in pregnancy. But a lot of what we do is about maintaining health, and that is a part of our philosophy. And something that's come out very strongly from all our members is that midwife-led continuity of care as a model of practice is like the basis of midwifery. The evidence is so strong. For midwifery to work well, we need to work through this care model. Of course, that is all based on research, because ICM is a research-based organization. We're driven by research. And it's all based on the essential competency for midwifery practice. But on top of that, we need to have an enabling environment. So we need to fit within society, and society needs to see where we fit in for the health of society. And because we are women doing women's work for women and with women, the gender equality, the gender lens is extremely important when we look at midwifery in general. And I think in general, we need to be aware of that all the time. So this is the new midwifery framework, and what we want to do is work towards the future whereby when we look at midwifery in every country, we look at this whole spectrum of midwifery and the framework for midwifery so that we can optimize our care and actually come to our potential. So, this strategy is a great thing, and of course, it's wonderful to really believe in a strategy and to build a strategy together. But a strategy is actually something you have to work on and make it happen. A strategy means that you need commitment, that you need leadership. Strategy means that you have to put funding into it. And I've been really, really interested in looking at your strategy. So the strategy of the Republic of Ireland and the strategy of Northern Ireland when it comes to your maternity services. I would just like to share some of my thoughts on what I've seen. So when it comes to the Republic of Ireland, I want to really congratulate you that you have a really great national maternity strategy. And I really see a strong vision with your four main priorities. What I understand is that your first priority is a health and well-being approach to mothers and families, that you really want quality maternity or woman-centered maternity care. I think that's really excellent. That pregnancy and birth is recognized as a normal physiological process is also in the core of your kind of priorities, and that maternity services are appropriately resourced, that you have good leadership at all levels. And I think it is really great that you have this strategy, but of course it becomes slightly less meaningful if it is not truly implemented. And what we have found globally, and I'm sure that the same must be happening for you, that COVID-19 at times has slowed down this implementation. But in many ways, we've come to realize that the opposite should be happening. If you really want to make sure that you have healthy future generations, you need to push to have this strategy implemented. To implement a strategy, what you'll need is to have safe staffing levels across your country. And so you need to train, to recruit and retain sufficient numbers of midwives. In a strategy, you need the people there to be able to do the work that you envision. And also the evidence clearly points to the quality care and especially midwife-led continuity of care, and that is integrated in your community services. And that includes home birth services, for example, and midwifery-led units. And so that women really do get a true choice. And I think that is extremely important. Yet I do understand that actually at the moment, your midwifery-led units are under threat. And that is something you really need to give attention to. And again, a reason why midwives need to join their association, because I have understood that the INMO midwifery section has really spoken up together with other midwives for these midwifery units, and that you've had quite some success. But it really does need your attention to make sure that these choices for women are there and that the strategy is moving forward despite COVID. And I think woman-centered maternity care needs not only a good strategy, but it also needs commitment and investment by the government and by your health services. And it needs to be funded, of course. And most of all, I think what you can all personally do is that you really do try to live and push your strategy, all of you. So you can't just expect that certain people in leadership will do that. We are all leading, and we all need to lead our strategy. And we all need to push for commitment and for funding from our government. So I really hope that this excellent strategy that you have, that you'll be able to push it forward. Now, when it comes to Northern Ireland and your maternity strategy, I hear that it has been extremely successful and that you've also implemented midwife-led continuity of care, and you have developed midwifery-led services, including the opening of both alongside midwifery units as well as freestanding midwifery units. That's just really wonderful. And to maintain progress, you will, of course, really need to commit to additional funding. We need funding to implement our strategies, and we need resources so that it's actually sustainable. I have noticed that your strategy came to an end. I think it's 2 years ago, just about, that the strategy came to an end, and no new strategy has yet been developed. Again, sometimes it happens that COVID slows these things down, but this is the time that you really need to push it. So I really hope that the time will come soon that you will start thinking of your new strategy, building on what you've already done, so that you are investing in the future of our generations. So I think investing in midwifery.
Sorry to sort of step in there, but we're just sort of coming towards the end of the session. But I'm delighted that you got in the issues around the strategies for both the Republic of Ireland and for the North of Ireland. We certainly in Northern Ireland are very keen to get our strategy moving forward, and a new strategy developed that will continue to push us forward. It's been a fascinating presentation. No, absolutely not.
May I just say one last thing before I finish, because I understand the timing, but may I just say one last thing to finish?
Yes, certainly, go ahead.
Because actually I had just about to come to the end, and I'm so sorry. I think I got a bit carried away. But I think one thing that's really important is that we all as midwives need to know that we need to lead the change. I think leadership is really, really important in this, and not just leadership like the leaders, but leaders everywhere, leaders in hospital units, leaders as midwives. We all need to lead, because I think that we really need to realize that, of course, nothing about us without us is for us. We midwives and women, we have to stand together and lead this process and stand for it. And every single one of us has that responsibility, because that's what midwifery is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Franka. We've been delighted to have you today. We will share your PowerPoint later for the delegates, so they will be able to get access to that and get a chance to see it. But it has been an absolute pleasure to hear from you today, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me see now. Stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't actually watching my clock there. I think that's why I went over time.